Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Back at you with USC women's basketball analyst and Big Ten women's basketball analyst. I think we should also say that. CC Clay, we're continuing our Big Ten preseason preview series. And so today, teams 6, 5, and 4, teams that CC Clay is predicting to finish 6th, 5th, and 4th in the 18-team Big Ten. And again, it's July. This is an early bird exercise. Don't ascribe gospel truth to this, because as soon as, October practice gets going and we actually get to see people on the court, and then of course games get played in early November, and then as soon as an injury happens, all this is going to be scrambled. But we're just trying to get you an early sense, an early taste of the expected balance of power in Big Ten women's basketball for this coming season. And so before we get to team number 6, part of our countdown, Cece, let's just review very briefly teams 18 through 7 as we count down in the Big Ten Conference.
First, I say, what's up, Matt? You doing good?
I am.
Busy. We're all busy. But yeah, this is an exciting week for me. Talking about 6 through 4. So yeah, let's get into it. I'll run down the 18 through 7 right now. Let me pull up my list here. And if you haven't been able to watch the other episodes, please do. But if you don't have time, here's where we are right now. And just like Matt said, I want to premise this by saying this is all based on what we're looking at on paper. So I think this is all going to be changed up by November, even by January, when season starts, when we get to see how these teams flow together and the chemistry and so on and so forth. So let's all have fun with this and take it with a grain of salt.
And before you begin your list, just a reminder for our viewers and listeners here on the Trojans Wired podcast, CC. We did one episode on teams 18 through 15. So you can catch that particular episode at CC's USC YouTube women's basketball channel. We did another episode, teams 14 through 10. And then our most recent episode before this one, 9 through 7. So there are 3 other Big Ten preview episodes. This is the 4th. And then we have our other one coming up later in the month on the top 3 teams 3, 2, and 1, but this being 6 through 4. So just with that, now let's get to your list.
Yeah, so 18, we had Purdue. 17, we had Wisconsin, then Rutgers. Northwestern at 15, Penn State at 14, Indiana at 13, Minnesota at 12, Oregon at 11, Nebraska at 10, and then we had Iowa at 9, Washington at 8, and Illinois at 7.
And with the reminder that we're basically thinking that teams 1 through 10 are probably going to be in the NCAA tournament. 10 might be close to the bubble, but probably gets in. Probably not. We're not guaranteeing it. So it's just in terms of 1 through 18, we're thinking 1 through 10 is pretty solidly either in the tournament or on the bubble. At 11, you could have a bubble team, and maybe even 12. Probably not. It's probably not that much deeper than 12, maybe 13, like Indiana at 13. That might be the extent of the bubble for the Big Ten. But now teams 4 through 6, we're talking about not just in the NCAA tournament, but competing for Sweet 16 seeds, higher seeds, teams that, have a realistic expectation of not just getting into the tournament, but getting to the second weekend and maybe even beyond. So without further ado, team number 6 on CC Clay's Big Ten preseason countdown.
At team number 6, I have Ohio State. And the reason why I put Ohio State there, and, there could be a case for them to be lower. You know what I mean? Because they lost big when Cody McMahon left, and they didn't refill their bucket. So that's the only thing that I'm leery of. The reason why I put them at 6 is because Kevin McCuff is a darn good coach, and their defensive team. And they do have Chance Gray coming back and Jelani Cambridge coming back. They do have a 6'4" center. I don't recall how she played. Her name is Ella Hobbs. And then they have a 6'6" center. Her name is Elsa Lamia. I think she's an international player. The only person that they're bringing in as far as their freshman class is a young lady by the name of Daria Berwick. And she's a wing. So I don't know what the ceiling is for Ohio State. This team right here, Ohio State, is the one that confuses me the most because they didn't replenish anything in the portal. They don't have any notable freshmen coming in. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kevin McGuff, you know, gets his team together and what he's going to do with this team. But I have them at 6 because I still feel that there's more to this team than the ones below Ohio State for now.
And USC fans, obviously, the win over Ohio State in February was great. There was a game in which JuJu Watkins did not shoot very efficiently from the field, and yet USC was still able to handle Ohio State. That was fun, but like that reality that Ohio State's offense can go into a black hole, like that offense can disappear for large stretches of gameplay. USC benefited from that in direct competition against the Buckeyes, but as we all saw at the Big Ten women's tournament, UCLA having that easy jog through the semifinals against Ohio State, whereas USC got a really tough battle from Michigan, that left UCLA a lot fresher for the final. And we saw UCLA with the fresher legs down the stretch of the Big Ten championship game, and that had the domino effect of the NCAA committee just shafting USC with the overall seeding. Ohio State's offensive liabilities helped USC one time in February, but then really, really hurt USC later in March. And I think that is the operative and central question with Ohio State. How are they going to score? Where are they going to get their offense? And just asking that question, where are they going to get their offense? I think, Cece, the real key is if they don't get steals and transition baskets, where's the offense going to come from? Because they're obviously going to try to get offense from their defense. When they don't get those freebies and they have to play in half-court sets, where's the offense going to come from on this team?
They're truly a transition team, and if they're not playing well defensively, they're gonna be hurting. I also think last season, they had some personality conflicts. I mean, Cody McMahon was not happy at Ohio State, and it showed when she was on the floor. So I think that was another hurdle for them to get over. So I'm just interested to see what Kevin McGuff does with this team in the upside with them.
All right. Anything else on Ohio State before we move along to number 5?
No, but I do want to mention, I said that Ohio State has a couple centers. Now, these centers that they have, I don't remember them. I don't think that they're any centers that are going to be significant. Well, I wanted to bring that up because if you look at the Big Ten, they're really not a post-dominant league. The only teams that have that are dominant, play back to the basket, are UCLA with Lauren Betts and Penn State with Merkel. Those are the only significant teams with post. If you look at all the other teams in the Big Ten this year, there are no teams that have a significant post player. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Big Ten works around UCLA and Penn State when they play these two teams.
All right. So with that in mind, let's go to number 5.
Number 5, I have Michigan State. Michigan State, they finished tied for 5th last year. They finished 11-7. They made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. They got some key portal additions with Jaylen Brown from Arizona. She averaged 20 points a game. She's a good player. And they got Mara Dykstra from Montana State. And then they have Grace Van Sluten, and they have everybody else. They have a big team returning. So I just think that Michigan State, they're a good team, and they can go anywhere, in my opinion, from 5th all the way up to number 3 or 2 if they have a good year.
From what I saw of Michigan State last season, I mean, I saw them a couple times against Michigan, and those were tough games. And games that weren't going well, or at least were even for a while, but then Michigan State was able to really turn it on I know in the road win at Michigan, it was like a really, really tough first half, and then Michigan State
Split.
was able to
They
separate in the
split.
second half.
They split. Michigan
Yeah.
State beat them one
So
time. Yeah, Michigan won
so
one time.
yeah, they split home and home. So I saw the road win at Michigan when Michigan State was able to separate in the second half. And like just, when they get into we often think about teams in an offensive groove, when shots start falling. My sense of Michigan State is that like when they were really locked in on defense, they looked very formidable, but just that sustaining their defensive quality proved to be a challenge over the course of 40 full minutes. What's your sense of Michigan State and perhaps how defense first this team is likely to be this season?
So they're going to have chemistry because they have a lot of the same players returning, and they have Grace Van Sluten. They're not big. Like I said, a lot of teams in the Big Ten this year are not big. Grace Van Sluten is not a true center. She goes 6'3", but their front court is very formidable. And I just think that their guard play is questionable, but there's more upside to their downside. And I think defensively, they're going to be okay. But I think that the team is going to be centered around Grace Van Sluten this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how well they play together.
Would it be reasonable to assume that Michigan State, because of its front court first orientation, is going to be one of the slower teams in the Big Ten, and that pace is going to be a really central thing to look at in games that Michigan State plays within the conference?
So, because like I said, their guards are questionable. They're going to rely on their front court to score next year. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I think they'll get out on transition when they have opportunities to do so. But I think that offense is going to be centered around Grace Van Sluten.
All right. So before we get to number 4, just a reminder that our next show after this one is the top 3. So it's like a beauty pageant, right? You don't want your name to be announced in that third slot because that'll tell the other remaining participants that they're going to be in the top 2 and have the chance to be number 1. So like you don't want to be number 4 because that means you're out. You're eliminated from the top 3 reveal next week. And so USC fans, just a little set it up here. Will CC Clay keep the USC Trojans out of the top 3? Drum roll and the envelope, please.
No, I have USC coming in at number 4.
All right, let's hear it.
There's a big silence there, right? Look,
Yeah.
on paper, there's just you just don't know. You know what I mean? USC they have Jazzy Davidson coming in, and she's the second coming of JuJu. You have Kennedy Smith, and she's going to be really, really good next year, and she's going to be dependent on. Then you have London Jones and Kara Dunn. But are they going to be able to sustain or put it together to be in the top 3? Maybe they will. But right now, there's question marks around USC because we don't know what we don't know. So because we don't know what we don't know, and I know much more about the other 3 teams that I have in the top 3, I had to put USC at number 4. It broke my heart because, I'm a diehard USC fan, but if I'm looking at it analytically and I'm being honest and basing things on paper compared to the other teams, I got to put them in the 4th slot. And then there's a question mark about their front court. I mean, they got the international player coming in, but, she was playing against subpar teams. And then we have Milton, who didn't play that much at Auburn. What's the upside to her? I don't know. So, they're going to be a guard-focused team. They're going to rely on their defense. I know that for sure. They'll probably be in the top 10 defensively next year. But, how are they going to use London Jones? How are they going to use Malia Samuel? I mean, there's so many question marks about SC, and I want them to be top 3. I want them to be top 2, and maybe they'll get there. I don't think JuJu's going to play next year. I just don't. And the reason why I say that is because it might look like she's going in a good direction, but it all depends on the ACL graft, not the physical. Not the physical part of it, but the graft of the inside of the knee. How's that going to heal, in a timely fashion? And usually that takes 9 to 12 months. Is it worth it for JuJu to come back in January, February? I don't know. I don't believe it is. So I think they're planning to play the whole season without Juju. And on paper, I just it breaks my heart. I tried to find every way not to put them in to put them in the top three, but I just couldn't with the other three teams left.
And I would say that if you do think that JuJu Watkins is not playing at all the coming season, then this seems about right. I think that if JuJu does come back in the middle of January with USC being like fourth or fifth, then you can think USC can work its way into the top three, maybe even top two by the end of the season. But I think that really is the key point, is that it's based on a projection. And like, let's be very clear. We don't know, right? We do not know what JuJu Watkins is actually going to do. We do not know what the actual timetable for her health being 100% or close to 100% is actually going to be. We don't know. So like do not assume from our watching and listening audience that we know something that no one else does. No, we're just
Yeah, I don't
trying
know.
to use our best get educated guess on a collection of factors, looking at the landscape, looking at what makes sense for JuJu personally and in terms of her career, and weighing risk versus reward, rushing back into action versus taking the extra time to heal, do it right. Like, we're hoping that JuJu Watkins, and this is beyond USC, right? We're hoping that she becomes a superstar of women's basketball for a very long time, a decade and a half career, being able to enjoy the game that she loves, being able to play it at a high level. So, as much as all of us naturally, of course, want JuJu to return to the court for this next season, there is a whole career, a whole life for her to consider. So that is just worth keeping in mind. But again, this is not kind of inside knowledge or confirmed fact. We're just making educated guesses because again, this is
Well,
July.
if
And
you look
so
at
that has to be
yeah,
a foundation for the conversation here.
if you look at Charlize Ledger Walker from UCLA, she hurt her knee. I think it was during the NCAA tournament, not the year before last, and she sat out all of last season. You know what I mean? When people thought she was going to come back in January, she decided to take that redshirt year. So they hurt their knee about the same time, about the same period. And so when you look at it that way, it makes sense for Juju to sit out the whole year, just so she can focus on making sure that she's healthy, she gets her game right. Because when she comes back, I'm sure Juju wants to come back better, than she was this previous season. She doesn't want to come back and be hesitant, in her shooting, or hesitant in her, because she cuts hard. She doesn't want to come back, you know, um, not doing her Euro step the way she likes to do it because, of her knee situation. So I just think that, like I said, I don't know. Just like Matt said, I'm just guessing. If you look at other injuries and time frames, like I'm using Charlize Ledger Walker, she didn't come back, and everybody thought she was going to come back in the middle of the season, and she redshirted. So I'm basing my opinion on that. However, I will say I am looking forward to seeing what Jazzy Davison can do. Now, if Jazzy Davison comes in and has like a Juju-esque type year, then yeah, I think we're going to be in for a surprise, and I'm hoping that happens because Juju's freshman year went totally unexpected the way that it did. Right, they made it to the Elite Eight her freshman year due to the Ivies and her. Can this same thing happen with Jazzy? Of course it can, but right now, I just don't. I just got to have them at four guys. Don't beat me up.
I think the other really important question to ask, and of course, as we get to see this team practice and we get into the early days of the season, we'll get to see some real observable evidence for how the pieces are going to fit. So once again, it's early, it's July, but I think the other question at the forefront of a lot of USC players' minds is, I think if you put 100 USC women's basketball fans in a room and you just said, real talk, do you think this transfer portal group met your expectations? I'm betting, CC, most of them would say no,
You
because I
think?
think that they were thinking about, Sarah Williams of Wisconsin and some of the other, real splashy targets. USC didn't get those, but that having been said, maybe getting kind of these role player types, and that's not meant as an insult, just kind of identifying that you're not getting like superstars, you're getting pieces, components. Do you think that there's a sense from Lindsay Gottlieb and the coaching staff that they wanted to get role players so that Jazzy Davidson, there wouldn't be a lot of conflict in terms of Jazzy Davidson being able to run this team, and everyone knows that like it's she and Kennedy Smith, they're the leaders of the pack, and that getting perhaps a more ball dominant post player, someone who wants the rock every time down, that might have been a complicating element for team chemistry, and that the portal pickups were assembled precisely so that it could feature more of Kennedy Smith and Jazzy Davidson on the ball. What do you think about that?
Here's what I will tell you. That could have been part of it, but I think another part of it were agents. And I think another part of it was getting into USC. And I'll just leave it at that. So, and here's what else I will say. Don't get it twisted. The portal pickups that they got were really good. I mean, they got London Jones, they got Kara Dunn, who was all ACC, and they got Mendez from Washington State, who averaged, I think, 15 to 18 points a game for Washington State, and they got Milton. They got the center that they wanted. You know what I mean? So they I think when you look at it, yeah, it wasn't a splash like Kiki Iriafen or TVO. But when you look back at last year's team, and if we're going to keep it 100, right? You look at Kiki Iriafen and you look at TVO that were supposed to be the top pickups in the portal nationally. They were on the top 10 list. One of them really panned out. The other one didn't, not so much. You know what I mean? The expectations weren't met, I would say like that. Not that she didn't help the USC team. TVO really did help the USC team, but I think the expectation was a lot higher from TVO that was actually met. Whereas when you look at the year before when they brought the Ivies in, there was no expectations for any of these guys, right? And they came in and they fulfilled their role, and that team worked. So I think here you have the same type of situation. You have players that are, not one freshmen that are not used to playing roles. You have players coming in that are not egotistical, that just want to come in and win, and do what's right for the team. They have their personal goals, but they also have team goals that they want to share. And I'm sure during this year's portal process, that conversation was really had with each of the players that decided to come to USC. This is going to be how it is. This is not how it's going to be how it is, just from learnings. You know what I mean? So I really believe that, the puzzle pieces were filled the way they were supposed to be filled. It laid out the way it was supposed to lay out. And now we have to see how Lindsay and staff, Coach B, put this team together to make it maybe not the number one team in the Big Ten, but definitely a strong NCAA tournament contender by the time tournament season comes around. That's my thought process.
Yeah, I mean, and just, to kind of lay it on the table instead of kind of dancing around it. I think this is a good portal class. But obviously the question becomes when you're trying to make the Final Four, is good enough, to play with the really big hitters. I do think that Lindsay Gottlieb and the staff, they were very, and you've said this, and I totally agree with it. They're not just going to get best athlete available, best player available. They're going to get their fit players who are going to work with their culture and are going to work within this system. Like Milton, going from the conversation you had with Beth Burns, like from what I've seen and read of Milton in the transfer from Auburn, she seems like a baby Rhea. Like she's going to be in the Rhea role, rangy, springy, athletic, willing to defend all over the place, throw her on the front line of the press. Like there are some pieces that I see as being very effective replacements for the players who have departed. Like so, I see fits. I see a lot of fits on the roster. I think the question is going to be where's the scoring going to come from if it's not coming from the backcourt. And I think that leads me to my next question for you, Cece, and that is this. You've talked about this, the Destiny Littleton team in 2023, like it was just an all defense team. They had to play rock fights in order to win a large percentage of their games. Then, of course, you have JuJu. Now you don't have JuJu, but you do have Jazzy Davidson coming in. And so what's going to be the balance of this team? Like, are they going to need to play rock fights most nights, or can they kind of settle into a way of playing where they're able to score around 70, and it's like, so the defense doesn't have to do everything. It's still going to have to be the leading element of this team, but like, are they going to have to win, 54-50 a lot of the time? I think a lot of USC fans might be interested in that question.
Here's what I think. I think this team is going to be different than any other USC team has been on court since Lindsay has got here. I mean, they have some phenomenal guard play, and I think that the offense is going to reflect that. Even their front court is fast. Even their front court likes to play defense. You got Vivian, who has improved tremendously, because she played under Rhea and Kiki, so she learned a lot under those two. And then you got Laura Williams coming back, who was a beast on the boards, from what I'm hearing. So you got those two players, and then you have the guard play of London Jones, who can score. You have Kara Dunn, who is a playmaker. She can drive. She can dribble drive. She can shoot off the dribble. She's very, very crafty with the ball. And then you have Kennedy Smith, who can shoot the ball, and she can make her own offense. And then you have Jazzy, who's just a playmaker, and she can shoot the three. I think that we're not going to have a problem scoring, because I think also Rianne Forestier is going to see some playing time next year, because she's a knockdown catch and shoot 3-point shooter. So I think that she's going to get a lot of time in the offense next year. But I do see them going faster than they even did this past year, and their offense is not going to be, it's going to be read and react, but they're not going to be standing around like they were last year. They're going to be a balanced scoring team, and you're going to see a lot of cutting and a lot of motion with this team. But I do still think that they're going to be a top 10 defensive team, because it's not because they're going to have to. It's because they got some dogs that actually like to play defense. And there's a difference. There's a defense of having to have to play defense. And then you got players that want to play defense. You got players that don't want the other opponent to score on them. This team is filled with that. Malia Samuels, who I forgot to mention. You got Malia Samuels, and I'm sure that from what I'm hearing, her game has improved tremendously, offensively and defensively. And then, you got Kennedy, who's a dog on defense. Jazzy is a dog on defense. You got some players that want to play defense. So, man, that's what I can't wait to see. But I still have to put them at 4. I'm trying to talk myself up, but I just, the 3 teams ahead, there's just no way I can.
Well, I think one other question I'd ask of you, and that a lot of fans might be interested in getting your sense of this team, obviously at this early stage, because there's more we're going to learn about this team as we go along. But, and especially if JuJu doesn't play, would that seem to mean that Lindsay Gottlieb and Beth Burns and the rest of the staff need to extend their rotation? Because usually USC works with like an 8 or 9 player rotation. And so, there are a lot of names you've mentioned. Is this a year in which USC needs to be playing 11 or 12 players? So not only so that everyone stays fresh, but also so that Gottlieb and the rest of the staff can explore many more lineup combinations. Like, they will need to run through, in my mind, more combinations to unlock the best version of this team. And so without JuJu Watkins, you might need to rework that Rubik's Cube, so to speak. You need to be continuously twisting and turning to find combinations that work. So do you think we're going to see a longer, deeper rotation this season?
Honestly, Matt, I don't know. I got to wait till I get a chance to go watch this team play. Or something like that, just so I can have a feel, when I look at them, what I'm feeling, you know what I mean? And I want to see, Laura Williams play. I want to see just how good she is on the board, how strong her knee is, I want to see how much Viv has improved. I want to see Rianne shoot threes, and who's going to run the point, and is there going to be a point guard, or what are they going to do? So I can't. Would I like to see a deeper rotation if they all play well? Yeah, maybe, but usually going into NCAA tournament, it's usually about an 8 or 9 player rotation, and Lindsay only has 13 players this year, which is a better manageable situation, I think. So it's going to be interesting. I want to see how Gerda fits in with this team, so how is she going to fit in? She might come in and blow everybody away. I don't know, so I'm sure there's more aspects to her game. I mean, in the games that I watched, that she wasn't taking many outside shots. Her game was mostly in the paint area. So I don't know, Matt. I don't know how the rotation is going to be. I'm anxious though. I get chills thinking about it. I get excited talking about it. I'm mad because I had to put them at 4, but I just don't know. They have more. I'll put it like this: SC has more upside than any team below them, right? So who knows where they will land come Big Ten start of season. How are they going to play in November? I think that's everybody's question. USC is a big question mark for everybody because without JuJu, what's their identity going to be?
I think this just brings up a worthwhile point about roster spots and playing time on any team, any sport. So not just women's basketball, not just college basketball. This is true for any sport. Sometimes in training camp or preseason practice, player A plays at a decent level, but player B is playing at a high level. So player B gets that roster spot just the way it is. But sometimes it's not so much one player is outperforming the other, like they're both playing at a similar level. Maybe they're both playing great. Maybe they're both playing average. Those kinds of things would obviously go into roster decisions, into decisions such as player rotation. So let me be clear. When I asked about USC playing a deeper rotation, it's not as though you make that decision in a vacuum. No, you have to observe how players are playing. And I would say then, CC, that the hope is that all these new additions, they're all pushing each other in practice and on into October, so that when Lindsay Gottlieb calls their name on the bench, like everyone has the belief that she will be able to play. She will be able to get 10, 12 minutes, make a contribution. But yeah, that doesn't just happen. Players have to show on the practice court that they're worthy of those minutes. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out with USC. All right, Cece. So any other big picture observations on USC? Obviously, this was our 6 through 4 show, but because USC is part of this particular broadcast, any other parting thoughts on the Trojans specifically?
No, just that I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to see them on the floor playing together. Um, I'm excited for this season. We're like, what, 3, 4 months away now? It's going to come around really quick. So, and hey guys, look forward to seeing Kara Dunn. I think she's going to surprise a lot of people. And so putting them on 4 is just for now, guys. It's just for now. Do I think USC has a big upside? I do. I just want to see them play together, the chemistry, and what their front court is going to do. That's a major question right now for them. What is the guard play? I'm not worried about. It's what is Lindsay going to do with the front court? That is the big question mark.
No question about it. I mean, front court scoring to me, like that's going to be a central issue that USC will have to solve as it goes along. All right, Cece. So you have plenty going on at your USC YouTube women's basketball channel. Courtney Jaco now newly published. What else do you have as well? And tell people how your conversation with Courtney went and what that was like and what people can expect from that.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. That's probably one of the longest podcasts I've done. It was an hour long podcast. But Courtney, I've known Courtney for a long time, And she's just a wonderful person to speak to. She spoke with honesty, she spoke with class, she spoke with humility. Really enjoyed our conversations about her building relationships with player. When she played for USC, how that was. She talked about going and being able to learn under Tara Vanderveer. So I mean, it was really, really a good podcast. If you guys have not checked that out, please go watch that podcast. Go watch all my podcasts, guys. They're all really good. So that, and of course, right now I know I haven't put out a Substack, but I'm so busy right now. Substack has to go to the sideline right now because I'm really busy, focused on my website, building my website, which should be done here in the next couple weeks or so. And then I have some more videos coming out. Wednesday, I'm going to do a Jazzy Davidson breakdown of her USA games. So I'm going to do a film breakdown of that. And then I have Truth in the Trenches coming out on Friday with Cameo. And then the following week, we have another podcast coming with a special guest. So just busy.
Yeah, it's the off season, but that does not mean that CC Clay is taking it easy. It's exactly the opposite. As she continues to deliver first-rate content, the conversations that USC women's basketball fans have to watch and listen to. So go on over to CC's USC YouTube women's basketball channel, like the videos, subscribe to the channel, share the videos with friends, and get the notification reminder for each of CC's new broadcasts.
Look, I'm raising my hand like I'm a little kid in class. One thing I didn't speak on this the last time, but I have rebranded my YouTube channel. So I do have a new logo on there, and I do have a YouTube banner. I'm sorry, I do have a new YouTube banner on there, and I did change the name to USC Women's Basketball Film and Podcast for better SEO optimization. So just want to let you guys know that. So if you're searching USC, my channel should pop up now. If you Google USC, all my videos pop up at the top. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, so it's USC Women's Basketball Film and Podcast. Yeah, and follow me on Twitter, guys. My thoughts 0530. I tweet out some stuff sometimes.
He tweets out
Sometimes
a
I
lot of
argue.
them, and
So sometimes I
Trojan's
argue.
Wire
Yeah,
retweets and quote tweets to make sure that you're getting the
yeah.
content from CC Clay and that you're seeing it on social media so that you can listen to and watch all of CC's fabulous YouTube broadcasts.
I guess I might have to start an Instagram page pretty soon, but I'm gonna have to wait on that, guys.
Well, Rome, or I guess I should say Troy, was not built in a day. It's a continuous process of
Yeah.
building here at USC. All right, Cece. So we've gone through 15 teams. Next, in our next show, next Big Ten preseason preview show, we go through the top 3 teams. So bronze medal, silver medal, and the projected Big Ten champion for next season. It's going to be really interesting to
Hey,
see what you have to say and how those top 3 teams stack up.
and leave comments. If you don't agree with where I put SC, don't be afraid to share your comments, guys. But like, share, comment on the videos. It does help my channel a lot. So as far as I'm analytics. I'm looking at analytics all the time. So please like, subscribe, and comment.
Yeah, and just commenting obviously in a civil manner, like that might give Cece an idea for one of her future shows, or it might inform how she talks to other great USC guests that she's bringing in. So just keep the constructive commentary coming. I know that Cece Clay really appreciates it. All right, any final notes before we go?
Hey, everybody have a good week. Fight on.
Yeah, so we're recording this on the Sunday evening, July 13. So may I just say, this is the slowest week of the entire year in sports. Like there's no baseball except for one little all-star game. No basketball except for, summer league if you're into that. No NFL, no NHL, no nothing for 4 days.
Oh,
So like if you're if
wait. There is WNBA games. What are you talking about?
yeah, a few WNBA games. It's still the
Come on,
slowest week
Astrid.
of the sports year. It's still
Matt.
the slowest week of the sports year. So I'm just saying, like, if you're behind on life stuff, work, adult things that you need to do, hey, do them this week. All right.
And you have the
Just a little
WNBA All-Star
sagely
game coming up.
advice.
Yeah. Hey, we do have the WNBA All-Star game coming up next weekend, so make sure you guys tune into that. It's going to be pretty special. And yeah, so there are WNBA games coming up. Who cares about the other sports? All that matters to me is women's basketball. So yeah, keep that in mind, Matt.
Okay, duly noted. All right. So we hope you have a great week, and yeah, do watch the WNBA, but get your other chores done so that when we get into basketball season, college basketball season, you'll be able to have as much time as possible for CC Clay here on the Trojans Wire podcast and at her USC women's basketball. So for CC Clay, this is Matt Zemek. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time with our Big Ten Top 3.